We know that communication is essential to a healthy, satisfying relationship. It's also a struggle for many couples in just the normal experience of being together. But when you add injury to the relationship, communication problems are often compounded.
Our communication wasn't so great before her affair. Now, we don't know how to talk our way out of this mess. We can't go 2 minutes before things heat up, and she just walks away from the conversation. Time isn't helping us. It feels like things are getting worse, not better.
I've pretty much given up hope. It's been over 6 months since I found out about his fling, as he calls it. And anytime I've tried to bring it up, we just get into a fight. I don't want the conflict, but I don't know how to get through this without talking about it. I need help.
We're going to talk about communication today. I'm Tim Tedder, licensed counselor and creator of the resources at affairhealing.com. My guest is Raffi Bilek. Raffi is a licensed social worker in the Baltimore area who specializes in relationships, including those that are in crisis following infidelity. His special focus is in communication, and he's the author of the Couples Communication Handbook, which we'll talk about later in this conversation. Raffi is also a dad of 4 girls, a former swing dancer, an Orthodox Jewish rabbi, and a nationally ranked Scrabble player. I doubt you'll learn a lot about Scrabble today, but our guest has some good things to say about communication.
Welcome to The Recovery Room, a podcast presented by affairhealing.com.
In this healing place, in this healing place.
Raffi, you spent quite a few years working with relationships, working with couples. How did you get into doing what you're doing? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I actually started off as a computer science major in college, and I liked that. But it turns out that talking to people is more fun. And when I graduated, I got a job teaching computers to little kids, and it was just interesting that I was like, wow, talking to people could be the job and not the break from the job. And that was a real insight. And I was like, this is much better. So I kind of pivoted to human services. Ended up getting a master's degree in social work, started doing therapy with all kinds of different clients, and just kind of gravitated towards working with couples. It felt right. I enjoyed it the most. I thought I was best at it. And then, you get into working with a lot of folks who have faced infidelity, because that's just part of the lay of the land. And so I've really done a lot of deep diving into that, trying to help folks pull out of that.
I know working with clients, they will talk about what their relationship was like before is impacted by betrayal or infidelity. And then, of course, afterwards, in the middle of all the pain, in the middle of trying to figure out how do we come back together again and make this work, the struggle of learning how to communicate takes on its own challenges in that as well.
Trying to figure out how to communicate when you didn't have good patterns before, and now you've got this added massive issue of infidelity, it's a tall order.
So when you are approaching this issue with couples, what do you see as some of the primary lessons to be learned to help couples be better at the way they talk with each other?
I think one of the things that people need to get used to is talking one person at a time. And I don't mean not talking over each other, which I think is a fairly obvious thing. If 2 people are talking literally at the same time, that's not a conversation. But even just, if we're in conversation, then I'm going to speak and you're going to listen and you're going to hear me fully out before you start to share your opinion. So I help people divide the conversation up that way. And that way we can fully explore what's going on for me without having to contend with your reactions to it, your opinions. It's easier to stay out of argument territory if you are really focused on hearing me. And the other way that I divide up this conversation is I tell people, look, we are going to have 2 separate conversations about this issue. One of them is going to be the exploration conversation, where we figure out what the problem is. And then only after that are we going to talk about the actual resolution conversation, because you can't solve a problem that you don't understand. And yet we always run into doing that because, we just want to make the problem go away. We want to fix it. So a problem comes up, we say, okay, great, I'll do this and you'll feel better. But people are more complex than that. And so really taking the time to explore the problem and to speak one at a time really makes a difference in how we're going to get through any particular issue.
Okay, so slowing down, listening, being curious about what's really going on and what the other person's saying rather than, here's my fix to it and jumping right to that. Let's turn our focus to what's likely happening to that couple when betrayal has happened. And it's maybe fairly soon afterwards. You've got two different dynamics going on. You've got the person who's hurt, and they're feeling the great pain, and they're wondering, how do I ever trust you again? And all that stuff going on. And so they're speaking out of fear. They're speaking out of pain. You've got the other person, the one that, was maybe involved in an affair, and they're sitting over. They just want things to be better. They don't like the turmoil, and they want to give, maybe not justification for themselves, but they kind of want to make sure the picture's painted correctly, and then they're defending themselves and all of that. And so, you're set up a scenario that you just described. They're talking, but maybe not a lot of communication going on. How do you apply what you've said to that couple?
Okay. So first of all, let's understand that the only way we're getting off the ground here is if the hurt partner gets to talk about what's going on for them and their feelings. They have to unload a little bit. They have to be heard. And the involved partner has to hear it. They may want to defend themselves. They may want to paint the picture correctly, but that is not happening at the beginning. It's just not going to work. However much you want it, there is no way that the other person is ready to hear that, well, it was only 3 times and not 4, right? That's not a winning approach. So what I tell my clients when we're talking is that we are right now going to enter into your planet, into your head, and the way you see the world is the way the world is for right now. That doesn't mean that's the reality. So if you're mad at your partner for having done X, Y, Z, we're just going to understand that you're mad about that, and we're not trying to correct and set the record straight. There will be time for that, but setting the record straight actually won't make it better. Again, especially because this has happened, right? If the betraying partner had sex 3 times instead of 4 times, it's not going to change the equation. And so their job is really just to hear the hurt partner, understand all the flavors of pain, right? It's not simply, you betrayed me, I'm hurt. There's anger, there is insecurity, there is self-doubt, and much, much more. And just hearing those out and understanding it and tapping into that. Yes, I can understand why you would worry about your attractiveness now. Yeah, I get it. That makes sense. Instead of saying, no, you're very attractive. That's not the issue at all, because they're not believing you right now. Just hearing where they're at, reflecting it, validating it. Yeah, I get that you feel that way. That makes sense.
When you say we're going to explore, that we isn't just you and that client in a therapy session. That we is, we're going to model this so that the betrayer is learning how to do that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm handing it over to them as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Right. I'm going to say, okay, so, let's say Mrs. X was the hurt party. So, Mrs. X, let's hear a little bit like what's going on for you. I'm furious. I'm just so angry. I can't believe you would do this to me. Okay, Mr. X, what do you hear is going on for her? And he reflects it back and he validates that. And, I help them along to stay on track, but getting that message across and getting him to hear her in this example, that's really a critical first step. We're not getting anywhere until she feels heard, until the betrayed partner feels heard and understood. And then, yes, of course, the involved partner has their own feelings and their own thoughts and their own experience of this. And there will be room for that as well afterwards. In your average couple where there's not been betrayal, we try to keep things as balanced as possible. Here, there's a major imbalance from the outset. And so the involved partner definitely has to wait a while till they get to say their piece and how they see it and how they feel about it. And even then, trying to set the record straight doesn't matter all that much for fixing things. What matters is that emotional connection that we're trying to build.
When you say the involved partner may have to wait a while, are you saying in a conversation they need to sit there and listen before they say anything? Or are you saying that, listen, there may be a period of time where you're not saying much. You're just letting them voice what they need to say. and trying to understand it, whether you agree with it or not, understand it as much as possible. And it may be some time before they're ready to listen to you.
Yeah, it's definitely that, right? There's going to be a period of time where the hurt partner is getting to share their experience and their anger and go over the same things over and over again, by the way. They're going to say the same things, and you're going to sit there and say, yes, I can understand why you are feeling X, Y, Z. And we're going to do that over and over for a while. And the fact that the involved partner has their own feelings, yes, that's on hold because the hurt partner probably has little to no room to hold that for them. And so if the involved partner is feeling guilt or shame or remorse or whatever things might be going on for them, and they're really suffering from that, they probably need to find a confidant, a friend, a therapist to deal with that first, because their partner is overwhelmed and full of their own pain. There can be expressions of, I'm sure there'll be time to hear your part. I just can't do it right now. And there might be hurt partners who are ready and who want to hear from the involved partner, but I would not make that assumption up front. Usually somebody who finds this out is pretty full up with their own emotions and are not in a position to take on somebody else's to share that with them.
What hope can you offer the involved partner who's sitting here and listening and going, oh, but I'm hearing the same things over and over again. When is this going to change? And they just feel kind of discouraged and they want to step in and I need to fix this and so forth. How do you give them hope that it may not always be like this? This is why you need to hang in there.
Yeah, you do need to hang in there. It is difficult. It's a difficult situation. But a couple things. Number one, it is fine that you're hearing the same things over and over again. The goal here is it's not fact finding. And once you have the fact, then you're good to go. It's that your partner needs to put that out there and have you hold it and care about that. And the fact that you one time said, yes, I'm so sorry that you're hurt and that I hurt you and that you're angry, that doesn't do it. In the same way that you can't get away one time in your marriage saying, I love you and we're okay now. Like touching base with those emotions repeatedly is part of the game plan. So for your partner to say, I'm really angry, and then the next day, again, to come back and say how angry they are, that is normal, that is expected, and it's fine. You can respond the same way every time and say, I can understand why you're angry about this. I can understand why you're angry about that. It makes a lot of sense. I'm really sorry you're having this experience. And we're just laying brick after brick in this wall, that in this structure that needs to be rebuilt. And so it is frustrating, but recognize it's not like they're trying to get new information into you and you already understood it. So why do they keep at it? They're trying to hear over and over again that you care. And that is a message that will need to be repeated over and over again. And to the extent that you hear it and validate it and empathize with them, as we've been saying, it will go quicker. To the extent that you try to step in there and say, I can understand why you're angry, but don't you think it's enough already? But I think you don't understand the problem, what happened? Like, to the extent that you try to push back, it will take longer. The fix right now is not to make it go away. It's to get through the other side.
Okay, so this sounds really important, what you're saying. It's not just, okay, you've just got to sit there and stoically listen to this enough times so they can get it out. You're talking about a kind of listening or a kind of response that is bringing a sense of, I care about what you're saying. I haven't experienced it, but there's that, you use the word empathy that's coming into it. I'm sure you face those clients. I hate to be too stereotypical, but probably a lot of times men who really struggle with how do I, provide that kind of empathy to someone. First of all, I'm feeling all kind of shame and guilt because this pain that's coming out, I know I'm responsible for it. And now I'm having to listen to this thing that I've already heard again and dealing with it. How do you encourage that person to have the kind of response that is empathetic, that can be received by that hurting partner?
You're asking a tough question. It's hard. You do feel bad, you feel guilty, you feel ashamed. We need to work on segmenting that and compartmentalizing a little bit. If your partner is hurting and you're bringing your shame and your guilt to that interaction, you're not really there for them, and you need to be. And it is difficult, and witnessing that, being witness to the pain you caused is part of the restitution. You cannot get away without doing that part. You can't send them to a therapist to fix it up and make them feel better, and you'll come in when they're all done crying. It's not going to work. So it's part of the penance you pay to try to fix this. Fixing it does not come from bringing the best solution. Fixing it comes by going through the swamp and getting all the way to the other side. As long a slog as it might be, the only way is through.
Yeah. You know, at the beginning of this discovery process, the beginning of a recovery process, it's almost like things feel really out of control. There's so much emotion going on, especially the person that's been betrayed is acting out of their trauma. But they can't live like that forever. And your work is trying to help couples be intentional in what they're moving towards and the kind of healing and change they can experience. What are some of the ways you try to encourage couples to be intentional about the ways they bring up these hard issues and the subjects that, you know, it's not always comfortable to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, part of any couples work that I'm doing is making sure that they have a sense of self-regulation, that just because something comes up doesn't mean it's a good time to talk about it. In fact, it's usually not the right time to talk about it is when something makes you angry. When you find that your husband left his socks on the floor again, that's probably the worst time to go talk about it because you're all irritated and you're running and you're gonna chew them out. You wait. You put a little pause in there, and so if you're triggered by something, that might not be the time to go run to your partner and get angry at them again. That might be a time to take a few deep breaths, take some space for yourself if you need. Don't hang out with each other, when things are brewing. It is fine to take some space from each other. That is a way to protect the relationship, not a way to get away from it necessarily. And then you come back and say, you know what, I got triggered there. I really want to talk about that. Is there a good time we can do that? Rather than you get triggered and you run right into, I can't believe you did this. It's like, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a question of whether you're right or you're wrong. Yes, you might be right that your partner has hurt you, but it won't help you to jump on it in that moment.
What I appreciate about that is that you're describing a model that is going to help the couple move through a difficult issue. Now, I suspect that expecting anyone who's been injured by infidelity to self-regulate in that way immediately after finding out about it is impossible. But I think what you're saying, and what I would agree with, is, but being able to present what it looks like as you're healing. This is the thing to move towards, and this is the thing that's part of our responsibility for change. You're hardly able to do it now, but
right, of course. Conversations are not going to start off calm and friendly, but I do insist that the hurt party, as angry as they are, and as much as they need to vent it, does not become mean or cruel. Right? Name calling and put downs do not need to be part of the conversation. You can be very angry and very emotional without getting nasty and telling your spouse that they're just like their mother and all the kinds of nasty things you want to say. It doesn't help you. And if you're not able to control how you're speaking, then take a pause, get rid of the nastiness, come back, and let the anger be there without the meanness. So there is a limit. Just because you were hurt doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. But we also understand there's no expectation that you just be calm and cool. Like, yes, dear, I am rather peeved that you had sex with someone who is not me. Like that's not a realistic conversation.
Yeah. When couples get it wrong, despite best efforts to say, this is what it looks like, and maybe they even practice it when they're with you, when they're in a session with you, then they leave, and maybe before they get to the car in the parking lot or before they move into another room, after a session, something triggers it and they're kind of at the old pattern again. I mean, that can be really discouraging. Like, this doesn't work, but how should they be looking at those failures? I mean, just we're doing things like we always did. Is there a way to look at those that's part of the process of change?
Have you ever failed at something?
Maybe once or twice.
I think it happened to me one time in my life. I mean, yes, change is hard and there will be failures. If you are trying to practice taking a break when things get heated and you have 7 opportunities over the next week, and twice you manage to walk away before yelling, hey, that's great. That's called progress. If you can take one step, you can take another. So rather than looking at how we're never going to get there, you look at, what, we tried, we did okay, we fell back into it, we're going to keep trying. And we make it a team effort to get out of this pattern. And it takes some time. It's difficult. We are all creatures of habit, and we've been doing the same thing for a while. And trying to build a new pattern is going to take time. It is not going to flip over overnight. You do the best you can, and you keep pushing.
I think a lot of couples can look back at their relationship or marriage before the infidelity and recognize we weren't doing a really good job in this area of communication or solving issues when there was tension between us. Why is that such a struggle for couples?
I mean, because we all live in our own worlds. That's just the way humans are. We are egocentric, not in the pejorative term. It's just I see the world the way I see it. You know, I like Star Wars. Tim, maybe you didn't, in which case I don't think we can be friends. But people are different. And I just assume when I walk around that people would like Star Wars until I start to mature and realize, you know what? Maybe not everybody. And the same thing for just so many subtle things about our lives. Like, it's obvious to me why your behavior has caused me hurt, anger, shame, whatever it is, but it may not be obvious to you, even though I think it's obvious. And so trying to translate from my brain to your brain, or trying to understand that your brain is different from my brain, it's just so challenging because it's not the human experience. My experience is what I see through my eyes in the world day in and day out. And trying to recognize that other people don't have that, it's a challenge.
Were there any significant experiences in your own life that helped you see outside of your normal perspective? I mean, like we all have that myopic view of this is what's normal for me. I have my opinions about everything. The problem with the world and the problem in my relationship is usually the fault of the other person.
Right.
Were there any experiences in your own life that kind of helped you shift to going, oh, wait, there's more to consider here? Was it just education, or were there any things that happened that helped you get there?
It was watching Star Wars.
Okay. I better go back and rewatch those episodes.
I think I spent some time after college, before grad school, really doing some deeper self-work and coming to think about the way people are different and recognizing that and making space for other people, trying to become the person I wanted to be. And so really putting some intentional focus onto that. I mean, it just became so real. When you start thinking about the ways people are different, I was in a class once and my mentor, he asked us like, okay, so, what was the biggest problem here with the students of this institution? And I thought it was so obvious because like people are just inconsiderate. I'd be trying to go to sleep and they're running around the halls. And my friend said, yeah, the obvious problem is that people don't think deeply enough about the things we're learning. I was like, wow, like that's not what I would have picked. And we were working on that issue of like people are different. That really started to help me see like, wait a second, people really are different.
Yeah. Was that the insight that probably moved you to maybe some of your most significant shifts or changes?
Yeah, that was definitely part of the process of recognizing like, okay, I need to figure out who I am so I can understand how people are different so we can interact with people, right? That's a big part of getting ready for marriage, for me at least. Was, okay, I'm going to marry someone who is different from me. Let's be ready for that. I think a lot of people walk in, think like, okay, this will just, this will be cool. We both like, paragliding or whatever. We should be a good match. And it just turns out that no matter how similar you are to your spouse, the two of you will see things very differently in any number of areas.
So a couple listening to this that are recognizing the patterns like, oh boy, we just go at it. We really don't stop and listen. There's really not an empathetic attempt to listen to each other's story and try to understand. What would you recommend as maybe a first thing for them to try to break the pattern?
Getting out of this mindset of I need to make you understand. To me, the three most important words in a marriage are help me understand. Your partner makes some sense. There are a few people in the world who are married to folks who are actively psychotic, but the rest of us, your partner makes sense on some level, in some way, what they're doing, how they're feeling, how they see the world. It makes sense. And if you don't understand it, then you should start with trying to understand it. It'll make a lot more sense to you once you understand why they are the way they are and why they're doing the things that they're doing.
Whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah, nothing. I didn't say help me agree. I said help me understand.
Yeah.
I can understand why you felt so bad that you went out and did X, Y, Z. I'm not condoning it. I don't agree with it. I would never do that myself, but I can see how that's happening for you. Or, some people overeat. Like, I don't have a problem necessarily, but I can understand why that feels better for you to eat comfort foods at those difficult moments, whatever. And if I don't understand, well, help me understand. What's that like for you? What's the experience? How does that help you feel better?
Yeah. I mean, the label put on that is curiosity. And when it struck me that maybe I need to shift to being curious, even if I don't agree, instead of trying to convince them of why they're wrong and I'm right, and just listening long enough until I really think I understand where they're coming from. Again, whether I agree with it or not. And almost immediately, started experiencing, there's a whole shift in the way we're communicating right now. Why do I keep wanting to go back and do it the old way?
Yeah.
Well, I know you've developed helps and resources and services. If people are interested in some of the things that you've put out, where can they find you? What resources would you recommend?
You can find me at thecommunicationbook.com. That's because I've written the communication book. It's called The Couples Communication Handbook, the skills you never learned for the marriage you always wanted. And I talk a lot about this shift towards communication that works and towards empathic dialogue, which is what I teach people to do in couples counseling. So it is definitely a helpful book for people learning to change the way they communicate with each other. And that's available at that website and through Amazon. If I haven't convinced you yet that it's going to be worthwhile, you can get the first 2 chapters for free on there, both in PDF and audiobook. If you like listening to me talk, there's 7 hours and 29 more minutes of that, where this came from. So they can reach out to me at the Communication Book. There's a form in my email there. And yeah, I'm happy to help people with any consultation questions they have. I work with people across the globe, trying to help them get things sorted out, whether there has been a massive breach or not. But certainly I've seen my fair share of that. And, people often think that infidelity is like the worst thing to recover from and the hardest problem in couples counseling. It's really not. It is recoverable. With a couple of good mindsets and a lot of practice, we can get out of this.
Well, I'll put the links to those resources in the episode notes so people can easily find them. Appreciate your work, your willingness to talk to us, and hopefully those people who've been listening, maybe recognizing their pattern, have been encouraged and find some help in this. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Faith over failure.